Boss, I have great news for you. In today's conversation, I want to talk to you about how to start an 18-wheeler trucking business this year and start generating revenue. So the Kiwi Show, how are you today? I hope you are doing fantastic. I'm doing marvelous if you were to ask me. If you are doing as great as I am, go grab a cup of coffee or tea or vodka and let's roll. In today's conversation, boss, I want to talk to you about how to launch an 18-wheeler trucking business this year and start generating revenue from day one. Okay, so let me give you an overview. To prepare for this program, we did extensive research that took us about 8 months. We did research about the trucking industry, delving into 78 reports in total, including research from Trucker Tools, DAT, American Trucking Associations, Cloud Trucks, and RNA Trucking Company. Okay, and our key findings will just are fantastic because they actually tell you there's still money to be made in this industry. There are still opportunities. Okay, our key findings is that you have rising fuel cost. In other words, you have to think about actually increasing your prices because fuel is going like crazy. You have growing freight volume. Okay, you have unexpected mergers and acquisitions in the industry. Some truckers have filed for bankruptcy, so that creates new opportunities for newcomers. Okay. You have increasing reliance on technology. We have seen this with our own clients. Our own clients have actually, in the last 3 years, they have started relying a lot on technology. You have growing demand due to e-commerce growth. We're talking about Walmart Marketplace to Amazon to eBay. You have all those sales that are coming in, and those sales need trucking to actually haul the loads from one part of the country to the other part of the country. You also have in-app digital load booking. In other words, you have apps right now that allow you to actually book loads through the app or book loads online. You have an even higher freight volume when you think about food delivery, grocery delivery. I'm talking about the likes of because Instacart and Walmart Plus, they are now thinking about actually expanding their business across the country. So when you think about grocery delivery, you're thinking about local delivery, right? Now they start thinking about doing this thing nationally. So that creates an opportunity for truckers a lot, okay? And what you have to understand is that shorter hauls gain more popularity based on our research, okay? So what I'm trying to say here is that owner-operators primarily operate actually let me just phrase it another way. Certain vehicles are very popular with owner-operators based on our research. So you have Freightliner. So 37 to 38% of truckers love Freightliner. Peterbilt, 14.70%. Kenworth, 15.7%. International, 12.1%. Volvo, 9.7%, and Mack, 7.5%. So those are really all the trucks that are really popular right now with owner operators. Okay, but overall, one thing I want to say here is that you actually have a lot of reasons to start a trucking company, an 18-wheeler trucking company. Okay, and based on our research and based on our work with our own clients, we have tens of clients. Based on the work that we have done, we believe that today is a great opportunity to start an 18-wheeler trucking company because there is a major shortage of drivers. Boss, if you're listening to me, this is really the time to start because the trucking industry is forecasted to need $100,000 drivers in the near future. Okay, and companies are desperate to find drivers to fill the void. So, boss, your participation is really important. There is money to be made, okay? And there is a need for innovation in the industry. So nearly any industry welcomes innovation, including the trucking industry, particularly the 18-wheeler trucking industry, okay? And one thing we love about this industry is that it is recession-proof. Think about it. Think about it, boss. Trucking is the backbone of the country's economy. Okay, every country's economy for that matter. So as an 18-wheeler trucking business owner, you will play a pivotal role in getting goods to stores and warehouses. Also, the trucking industry overall is also recession resistant because there is always a need for trucking companies to obtain products and materials across the country. So I want you to think about that. Okay, you might be thinking the initial investment is a little high, but there is opportunities out there, boss. And it's very easy to start small and scale. The whole thing is I don't want you to break the bank by actually trying to buy an 18-wheeler truck right off the bat. Think about there are ways to actually own or lease a vehicle. I will speak about that later on. But overall, I want you to think about those four things, okay? 4 reasons why you want to start a trucking company right now. There is a major shortage of drivers. There is a need for innovation in the industry. The industry is recession proof, and it is easy to start small and scale. Now, here is the step by step. I want you to pay attention, okay? Step by step. Here are the steps. First thing, let's talk about planning. So if you think about starting an 18-wheeler trucking business right now, the first thing I want you to do is to write a business plan. Boss, I don't care if you think you have experience in the industry or whatnot. You want to write a business plan. Now, I'm not asking you personally to write a trucking business plan. If you have no knack for writing business literature, that's fine. You know why? Because there are people who are better at that than you. That's fine. You can actually hire somebody locally who understands the trucking industry to write a business plan for you, okay? Or you can actually go to websites such as Fiverr. You have freelancer.com. You have Upwork. You have TopTal. There are a lot of freelancer websites out there where you can find people to do the job for you. You want to think about you want to forecast at least $100 to $200, okay? If you want to have a solid business plan for your 18-wheeler trucking business, you want to plan at least $200. Now, the more sophisticated the plan, the higher the price. You have to think about that. But you need a business plan. Why? Because this plan will help you get funding, will help you in terms of leasing your truck if that's what you want, will help you actually get investors if that's what you want, will help you also deal with the regulators or providers, okay, suppliers. So this is really good, okay? And you want to actually make sure that it is as specific as possible. Are you going to do a lot of OTR, or you want to specify yourself as an in-state trucking driver? Because the whole thing is, people actually believe that if you have an 18-wheeler trucking business, you are supposed to do OTR. No, if you are in a large state like California, you can actually do in-state delivery only. Okay, so those are things you need to think about. So before you start your 18-wheeler trucking business, make sure you have a business plan, and you want to think about financial data also, okay? So you think about your revenue, your projected revenue, your projected expenses. If you have questions about this part, please just drop us comments below. We will answer you, okay? And we can even guide you based on the states where you are right now, what kind of a business plan writer you have in your state for the 18-wheeler trucking industry. That's the first thing. First thing, write a business plan. The second thing is you need to get driving experience. If you already are not an experienced driver, you need to get that experience. Very important. You will need to obtain a commercial driver's license, a CDL, okay? You can attend a private truck driving school, or some trucking companies have their own training programs or may sponsor you to attend a CDL school, okay? Many drivers who eventually become owner-operators, they will cut their teeth in the business by serving as a company driver for a few years. So you need to acquire that experience, boss. The second thing you want to think about is your load opportunities, okay? You want to make sure that you can expect solid load opportunities before you do anything in trucking. And I mean anything. What I'm trying to say is that a lot of folks want to jump into the 18-wheeler trucking business and they just want to start making right away. It doesn't happen that way, boss. It never happens that way. What I want you to do, I want you to do things in reverse, in a reverse way. In other words, you actually do some networking. You actually investigate the industry to make sure that there are load opportunities before you even start the business. Don't you start the business and then realize, hey, you know what? I can't find loads. Well, because you haven't done the research. You have to do things preemptively. You have to do things proactively before the fact. Okay? So you want to decide who you want to work with. In other words, let's say you are in Texas, okay? You want to survey the 18-wheeler trucking business in Texas. What are the load opportunities? Okay, who do you want to work with? Think about reputation, the location, their pricing. How much are they paying? Do you want to work with a dispatcher, or you want to find loads on a load board? Okay, those are things you need to think about because load boards actually specify things for you. Because, for instance, they tell you what needs to be shipped, the origination and destination, the lanes and handling, the weight and classification, the rates, and more. Okay, but you got to think about those things beforehand. Now, one thing you need to understand also is that you can think about working with a freight broker. Yeah, so you can choose a dispatcher or you can choose a freight broker. What I'm trying to tell you here is that you have to think about things beforehand. You have to search for that freight broker beforehand, before the fact, before thinking about writing a business plan. You got to have those beforehand. In other words, you have to have a clear idea of how the whole thing will map out once you have the business. Because once you have the business, once you start operating, fixed cost will actually mount like crazy. Okay, I'm not just talking about insurance. I'm talking about gas. You have to maintain some regulatory, you have to comply with some regulations. So those things cost money. Okay, I'm talking about business licenses and permits, depending on the kind of load you haul. Okay, so those are things I want you to think about. Think about actually you're analyzing. You want to run a backhaul search. You want to find out what's really happening in the industry in terms of truckloads. You want to rate truckloads by rate, miles, and shipping company. Okay, and you also want to list more than one type of transport. In other words, once you actually incorporate, what kind of transport do you want to go for? Do you want to drive a reefer, a flatbed, a dry van? It really depends on you. So I want you to do that analysis beforehand, boss. Beforehand. Now let's talk about operations. Okay, so number one, planning. Number two, load opportunities. Number three, operations. So basically, you have to save up money to cover startup cost. Yeah, that will be startup cost. If you want to start an 18-wheeler trucking business, you have to understand that there are some big investments upfront. For example, you have to purchase or lease the tractor and trailer, plus licensing requirements. Okay, registration, I talked about that. You need to identify sources and terms for financing and secure a line of credit. Now, I will talk about that later on. But you have to think about planning your operations. I'm talking about, like, for real. You have to actually sit down and write down certain questions. Where will you park the 18-wheeler truck equipment? Who will maintain it? See, those are not theoretical questions I'm asking you. I'm asking you practical questions. You have to think about that. How will you find loads? Think about that. Okay, the back office. How will invoicing, accounting, payroll, and taxes be handled? Who will do that? Do you want to outsource the whole thing? So my point for you is you have to think about those things beforehand, but you have to think about them in practical terms. This ain't no dream. We're not dreaming here, okay? This ain't no fiction. This is reality. So once you start operating, those are actual concrete questions you're going to have to deal with, okay? And in terms of operation, you also need to build your business. What I'm talking about here is that you need to think about how are you going to handle the hassles of getting your operating authority and complying with government regulations. Yeah, you have to think about, do you want to pay for a load board? Because load boards come in different sizes and shapes. Some are free, some are paid. So you have to think about that. So what about your freight rates? How much will you charge? Okay, and what about the fuel? What about fuel? Do you want to get a fuel card? You want to get a fuel card, or you just want to buy fuel as you go? What about freight factoring? Do you want to consider freight factoring? Freight factoring, in case you're not aware of it, it is a financing tool that allows you to increase cash flow without the use of debt. Okay, so you have some OTR service providers that actually provide this freight factoring thing. If you have questions about it, just drop us a comment below. We'll get back to you. What about drug testing? If you are owner operator, you're gonna have to go through some background check. If you're okay with that, think about it. Also, think about your bookkeeping, your accounting, your tax services. What about mobile app? Okay, so what about insurance, which is really, really important? Okay, so think about those things beforehand. Again, I want to specify the whole beforehand thing because it is pivotal. The fourth thing I want you to do, boss. So we've talked about planning. You have to plan your business. We've talked about load opportunities. We've talked about operations. Everything I'm telling you, those are questions you have to ask yourself beforehand. before even you actually open shop. Okay, now let's talk about registration. You want to register your business. It's very important. Okay, you want to register your business. You have to choose a business entity. You want to be an LLC. You want to be an S corp. You want to be a C corp. Anything you choose, please do not be a sole proprietorship. No. Okay, even if you're starting a one-person self-owned 18-wheeler trucking company, you want to look into becoming a single member LLC, because you want to protect your personal assets. You want to cover your ass. Very important, boss, because in the trucking industry, when there is a little problem, it can cost you a lot of cash. You don't want that. You need to preserve your personal assets. So think about either becoming a single person LLC, a single member LLC, or something else, but do not remain a sole proprietorship. Okay, and you have to also think about you have to choose a business name. You have to incorporate at the state level. You have to file incorporation papers. Okay, registration papers. Also, you have to choose a registered agent service to actually handle your paperwork with the states. Okay, you have to think about your EIN, your employer identification number. This is very important. You have to think about opening a business bank account. Okay, so you have to do everything that allows you to make sure that you are not infringing. You are not actually you are abiding by the law. Okay, and one thing I want to say here is that the process of incorporating your business is relatively straightforward, even if it's a little paperwork heavy. Okay, so typically all it takes is some supporting documentation about the company's principals and founders, tax identification information, a general business management, and a few other materials about your soon-to-be company, your soon-to-be 18-wheeler trucking company. Okay, and one thing I want to say here is that you can outsource the whole thing to an online LLC formation service. Okay, or you can do so through a local provider. That's totally fine. But I want to really, if you may, I want to come back to a very important point. Determine how your business will be structured. Okay, do not be a sole proprietorship. Never. If you want to start a successful 18-wheeler trucking business, you can choose between LLC, limited liability company, or a corporation. So corporation can be a C corp, an S corp, etc. Okay, each structure has advantages and disadvantages based mostly on liability and taxes, and this varies with each state. Okay, so you might want to meet with an accountant or lawyer to find out which structure best suits your business. I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another session of the Awesome Sweet Kiwi Show. I'm still having a conversation with you about how to start an 18-wheeler trucking business this year. Let's talk about compliance. You really want to comply with federal and state government regulations, boss. This is so important. You don't want to play with this, okay? Don't even try to play with this, because you get in trouble. That's a lot of cash, So you really, if you're serious about this 18-wheeler trucking business, I want you to make sure that you comply with everything. All federal and state government regulations. We're talking about U.S. DOT number. So the U.S. Department of Transportation requires carriers to have a unique identifier that is used to collect and monitor safety information, inspection, crash investigation, etc. So you want to have your U.S. DOT number. You want to have your operating authority. Very important. All for-hire carriers must receive operating authority from the U.S. Department of Transportation. This dictates what type of cargo you can carry. You also have to think about heavy vehicle use tax. So to fund highway programs, the federal government charges an annual tax on trucks exceeding 55,000 pounds. You also have to think about International Registration Plan, IRP. So IRP distributes registration fees based on distance traveled in each state or Canadian province. Okay, so you want to contact your state's transportation website to register. You have to think about your IFTA, your IFTA, your International Fuel Tax Agreement. So this is an agreement between the lower 48 U.S. states and Canadian provinces to simplify reporting of fuel use by carriers who drive in multiple states. So carriers file a quarterly fuel tax reports that determines their tax and distributes it to the states. You also have to think about BOC3 filing. Very important, okay? Carriers must designate a process agent to whom court papers may be served in a legal proceeding. So you need to specify a process agent in each state where you maintain an office or established contract. In each state, boss. Some companies offer blanket coverage that designates a process agent in every U.S. state. You also have to think about drug testing and FMCSA clearinghouse. So whether it is complying with government regulations or customer contract, it is important to stay legal by managing your drug testing program and registering all drivers with the FMCSA clearinghouse. Very important. Now, don't get me wrong though, this list is not exhaustive. There are other federal and state regulations, including size and weight standards, EPA air quality regulations, and safety rules. Okay, and the part that I want you to focus on, I want you to really think about is also insurance. You need to obtain insurance. Do not play with this, okay? So types of insurance required for transporting freight include primary liability, cargo, physical damage, which covers truck damage in accident where you are not liable. You have non-trucking use. This is bobtail, so this covers you if you're liable for an accident while you're not hauling a truck for someone else. And then you have per load insurance, so you can actually cut if you want your annual insurance cost if you want to actually go with the per load insurance. Also think about obtaining business licenses, permits that actually pertain to your industry. Boss, we are still having a conversation about how to start an 18-wheeler trucking business, okay? And now let's talk about the truck choice. It's very important. You gotta choose the right truck for you, okay? You wanna think about what kinds of jobs you like to do, one-day deliveries or longer ones. You wanna do, are there any geographical areas you'll be driving in? If you plan on driving through mountainous regions, for example, you'll need a semi-truck with extra gears to prevent an accident. Other factors to consider include horsepower, transmission type, fuel efficiency, and resale value, okay? As with any vehicle you purchase, you want to do a test drive first. But if you want to narrow down your brains, you'll find that Kenworth, Freightliner, and Peterbilt trucks can accommodate most of your trucking needs, okay? So when selecting your 18-wheeler truck, you want to consider some of these factors: price, comfort level, your preferred cab style, weather resistance, whether they have multiple dealerships across the United States, weight limits, new versus used, okay, whether you are operating locally or long distances, because there are consequences, there are some implications for OTR versus, I would say, in-city delivery, for example, not in-city, in-state delivery. So if you are considering, here are some of the trucks you want to think about. You want to think about flat roof sleeper. So this type of truck has a sleeping compartment for drivers and is larger and more expensive than other semi-trucks. Compared to mid-roof and raised roof sleeper trucks, flat roof sleeper trucks have the least amount of head space. Then you have to think about mid-roof sleeper. So this unit may have a bed, storage compartment, and even a TV. Okay, so mid-roof sleeper trucks have a rounded and slightly higher roof than flat roof sleeper trucks. So drivers have extra room to rest in the truck during breaks. Then you have a raised roof sleeper. So the roomiest of the roof sleeper trucks, the raised roof sleeper may have a side storage tower and an additional 12 to 18 inches of space compared to mid-roofs. You have a day cab. So day cabs are used to deliver loads during the day for routes that require no more than 1 day of travel. So these trucks are typically smaller and more expensive compared to other semi-trucks. They have less space for drivers and fewer axles. You have a sloped nose truck, okay? So these trucks have a short rounded front and are able to haul heavy loads and longer trailers. So sloped nose truck are better able to endure bumpy roads. You have conventional nose truck. So this type of truck is less common today due to its low fuel mileage. However, they were designed for easy access to the diesel engine. Now, I want to share with you some types of trailers for semi-trucks. Okay, so semi-trucks may be outfitted with the following trailers. You have box or dry van trucks. You have dry bulk cargo trucks. Dump or tipper commercial trucks. Flatbed trucks. Lowboy semi-trailers. You have refrigerator and reefer semi-trucks. And you have tanker or fuel trucks. Now let me talk to you about funding. So the big question is, boss, we are still having a conversation about how to start an 18-wheeler trucking business this year. So should you buy or lease an 18-wheeler truck and trailer? It really depends on you. It depends on a lot of things, really. Okay. So the thing here is that there are here are some common types of leases. You have operating full service lease. Okay. You have terminal rental adjustment clause lease, and you have to think about lease purchase plans. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail here because this lease can actually take an entire video. If you're interested, if we receive enough comments about going into much detail, we actually do that. Not a problem. Okay. So, but one thing I want to say here is that buy versus lease, that debate depends on your buying power as a small business owner. And there are several advantages and disadvantages that accommodate each route. So when you buy an 18-wheeler truck outright, your payment is completed, right? So no need to make monthly payments. You can also use the built-in equity to trade in your truck in the future. Of course, this also means a larger down payment, usually 10 or 25%, depending on whether you buy new or used. Now, when you lease, you don't own your truck. You must make regular payments and cannot use the equity to buy a new truck. Also, you must abide by specific regulations, including maintaining its conditions and mileage restrictions. But leasing offers some advantages. Mainly, the lessor will often cover your maintenance expenses. So whether you choose to buy outright or lease, you will still likely need to find some way to finance your purchase. Okay, so let's just talk about that. How do you secure startup funding for your 18-wheeler trucking business? Well, you can talk to banks. We have covered this on other shows, but again, there are banks that specialize in equipment financing. You want to start with the bank where you're currently at. Very important. Don't you trying to go to another bank. No, you want to start with the bank where you're currently at. There are also some alternative lenders, some online lenders that are in that space. You also have pure niche equipment financing companies. You also have specialty financing companies. You have organizations that actually provide capital only to 18-wheeler trucking businesses. Now, if you are interested in all that, we have all the research, we have the data. So just drop us a comment and we'll certainly share that with you. One thing I want to say here is that they might ask you to actually submit your registration and documentation, your business permits and licenses. You have to also think about truck maintenance fees. Okay. And you also need to think about accounting and invoicing software. That's in addition to purchasing your truck. Okay. So these expenses, when you really think about it, can actually tally up. So be very, very careful here. Now, according to the SBA, the Small Business Administration, trucking and transport companies, they actually have to look at an initial cost of $25,000 to $100,000. It really depends on what industry you're in. Okay. But in terms of funding, as I said before, we have the research, we have the data. You can actually get financing for your truck, for your 18-wheeler trucking business, not a problem. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. In today's conversation, I was just talking to you about how to start an 18-wheeler trucking business this year and start making money right off the bat. So I gave you an overview about the industry, and here are the 7 steps. You have to think about planning, think about load opportunities, you have to think about operations, you have to think about registration, you have to think about compliance, you have to think about truck choice, you have to think about funding. Thank you so much for your attention. God bless you. I'll see you next time, but until then, remember, stay marvelous.